Just one phone call could mean millions of dollars in reward money. But behind that fortune lies crime, terrorism, and some of the coldest cases in American history. From Osama bin Laden, hunted across the globe, to Boston mob boss Whitey Bulger, who once ruled an entire gang. From drug traffickers to international terrorists to fugitives who evaded capture for decades. These are the faces that appeared on the infamous FBI Most Wanted list. Over the next 30 minutes, 25 files will unfold. Each fugitive has only 1 minute to reveal the crime, the fate, and the ultimate price paid. Number 25. Glen Stewart Godwin. In 1980, in Palm Springs, California, Glen Stewart Godwin and his roommate planned to rob a drug dealer. The plot turned deadly, and prosecutors said they tried to destroy the body with explosives. The attempt failed, and in March of 1981, Godwin was sentenced to life in prison. On June 5, 1987, Godwin staged one of the boldest escapes in Folsom State Prison history. He crawled through a storm drain, swam across the American River, and vanished. Not long after, he was arrested in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, on drug charges and sent to the federal prison at Puente Grande. But that prison could not hold him either. In April of 1991, after another inmate was found deceased, suspicion fell on Godwin. On September 26th of the same year, he escaped again, this time from one of Mexico's most secure facilities. By late 1996, the FBI added him to the 10 Most Wanted list. They believe he speaks fluent Spanish and may be hiding in South America under false identities. To this day, he remains at large. The FBI has offered up to $20,000 for information leading to the capture of Glen Stewart Godwin, a man who twice broke free from prison in 2 different countries. Number 24. Alejandro Rosales Castillo. In August of 2016, in Charlotte, North Carolina, 17-year-old Alejandro Rosales Castillo arranged to meet his former girlfriend, Truk Kwan Sandy Lyle. He claimed it was to repay a small debt, but investigators said it was a deadly trap. She never returned home that night, and days later, she was found deceased in Cabarrus County. Her car turned up in Phoenix, Arizona, suggesting the suspect had crossed multiple states. At the same time, Castillo and his new girlfriend, Amia Feaster, fled into Mexico. Months later, Feaster surrendered to authorities, but Castillo disappeared. The investigation uncovered a tangled love triangle that turned an ordinary workplace into a stage of jealousy and betrayal. In October of 2017, the FBI placed Castillo on the 10 Most Wanted list. Nearly a decade has passed, and he has not been caught. Authorities believe he may be hiding in Aguascalientes or in other Mexican states. They caution that photos show a teenager, but today he is an adult who may have altered his appearance to evade capture. To encourage tips, the FBI raised the reward to $250,000, a rare amount for a fugitive wanted since his teenage years. Number 23. Anthony Brancato. In 1946, Anthony Brancato left Kansas City for Los Angeles, where his armed robbery skills caught the attention of organized crime groups. Soon he teamed up with Anthony Trombino, forming the notorious duo known as Two Tonys. They were suspected of multiple Mafia contract killings. The turning point came on May 28, 1951, when the Two Tonys staged a bold raid on the Flamingo Hotel gambling operations in Las Vegas. Within a month, the FBI placed Brancato on the 10 Most Wanted list, but his time there lasted only 2 days. On June 29, 1951, he surrendered in San Francisco, knowing the underworld had already marked him. Just 6 weeks later, on August 6, 1951, both Brancato and Trombino were shot inside their car in Los Angeles. Rumors claimed the order came from mob boss Jack Dragna, determined to silence them after the Flamingo heist. Brancato's case was unusual. A fugitive who briefly made the top 10 surrendered out of fear and was ultimately eliminated by organized crime itself. No reward remains in effect. He has been deceased since 1951. Number 22. Yaser Abdel Said. On New Year's Day of 2008 in Irving, Texas, teenage sisters Amina and Sarah Said got into the car of their father, Yaser Abdel Said. Hours later, both were killed and their father disappeared. The case shocked the community and was widely described as an honor killing, tied to family conflicts over marriage and lifestyle. At first, authorities believed Said had fled to Egypt, but for years, every lead pointed back to Texas. He became a shadow in local neighborhoods, believed to be sheltered by relatives. In December of 2014, the FBI placed him on the 10 Most Wanted list, warning that he was armed and extremely dangerous. On August 26, 2020, a surprise operation ended 12 years of pursuit. Said was captured in Justin, Texas. His son and brother were later convicted for harboring him. In 2022, he was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Before his arrest, The FBI raised the reward to $100,000, 5 times the original offer of $20,000. In the end, the shocking truth emerged. Yaser Abdel Said had never left Texas. Number 21. Ruja Ignatova. In 2014, Ruja Ignatova, a Bulgarian-German businesswoman, launched OneCoin, promoted as the Bitcoin killer. At luxury conferences, she appeared in glittering gowns and called herself the Crypto Queen. In reality, OneCoin was a pyramid scheme that defrauded millions of investors, pulling in at least $4 billion. On October 25, 2017, as investigations widened, Ignatova boarded a flight from Sofia to Athens and vanished. Reports suggested she may have traveled with armed guards and even altered her appearance. Since then, no confirmed trace has been found. On June 30, 2022, the FBI added her to the 10 most wanted list. At first, the reward was $100,000. In May of 2023, it rose to $250,000. By June of 2024, the U.S. State Department increased it to $5 million, one of the highest sums ever offered for a financial fugitive. Ruja Ignatova remains a chilling example of how ambition, glamour, and fraud can collide. The so-called Crypto Queen disappeared in Europe, leaving billions in losses and hundreds of thousands of victims worldwide. Number 20. Andrew Cunanan. In the summer of 1997, America was shaken by a string of killings across 4 states. The suspect was Andrew Cunanan, a young socialite from San Diego who moved between high society and the criminal underworld. Over 3 months, he was linked to 5 killings, including his close friend, architect David Madsen, wealthy businessman Lee Miglin in Chicago, a gas station attendant, and finally fashion designer Gianni Versace, outside his Miami Beach mansion. On June 12, 1997, after 4 victims, Cunanan was added to the 10 most wanted list. The murder of Versace on July 15th made the case an international headline. The manhunt lasted 8 days and ended on July 23rd, when police found that Cunanan had died by suicide on a houseboat in Miami Beach. During that time, the FBI offered $10,000, while Miami Beach police added $45,000. The man who discovered the houseboat, Fernando Carrera, received the full $55,000 reward. The motive behind Andrew Cunanan's rampage remains unclear. He is remembered as a fugitive who constantly altered his appearance and whose crime spree ended only when he turned the gun on himself. Number 19. Robert William Fisher. On the morning of April 10, 2001, a home exploded in Scottsdale, Arizona. Inside were the remains of Mary, age 38, and her 2 children, Brittany and Bobby. The only family member missing was Robert William Fisher, her husband and the children's father, a former Navy serviceman and firefighter whom neighbors described as private and cold. Investigators determined that the gas line had been disconnected and candles lit to trigger the blast. Authorities believed Fisher killed his family, staged the scene, and fled. The night before, an ATM camera recorded him withdrawing $280 with his wife's Toyota 4Runner behind him. 10 days later, that vehicle was found in Tonto National Forest. The family dog was alive beneath it, but Fisher was gone. For 2 decades, hundreds of tips came in, but none solved the case. Some believe he hid in the Arizona wilderness. Others suggest he may have taken his own life. The FBI added him to the 10 most wanted list in 2002 and removed him in 2021, though the warrant remains active. At one point, the FBI and Scottsdale police offered up to $100,000 for information about Robert William Fisher, one of the most enduring mysteries on the list. Number 18. Ramzi Ahmed Yousef. On February 26, 1993, a truck carrying 1,500 pounds of explosives detonated beneath the North Tower of the World Trade Center. 6 people were killed, and more than 1,000 were injured. The mastermind was identified as Ramzi Ahmed Yousef, born in Kuwait and raised in an extremist environment. After fleeing the United States, Yousef developed the Bohinka plot in 1994 and 1995. It included plans to assassinate Pope John Paul II, bomb 11 trans-Pacific airliners, and crash a plane into CYA headquarters. As a test, he planted a bomb on Philippine Airlines Flight 434, killing 1 passenger. A chemical fire in his Manila apartment in early 1995 exposed the plot. On February 7, 1995, Pakistani security forces working with American agents captured Yousef in Islamabad. He carried a false passport and bomb parts hidden inside toys. In U.S. court, he was sentenced to 2 life terms plus 240 years. At sentencing, he declared coldly, "I am a terrorist, and I'm proud of it." He is currently held at ADX Florence, the maximum security federal prison. The tipster who helped secure his arrest received $2 million from the Rewards for Justice program. Number 17. Jason Derek Brown. On November 29, 2004, in Phoenix, Arizona, an armored car stopped outside the Ahwatukee movie theater. Jason Derek Brown, who lived lavishly on debt, was waiting in ambush. He fired 6 rounds from a .45 pistol, 5 striking security guard Robert Palomares. Brown grabbed a bag containing $56,000, fled on a bicycle, and left it behind along with his fingerprints. Before that, Brown had been a shady businessman with heavy debts. Outwardly, he was a surfer type with blonde hair and an easy smile. But investigators described a man living in deception. He had once served as a missionary in France, spoke fluent French, and could hide within Mormon communities. After the killing, Brown fled through Nevada, California, and Oregon. His Cadillac Escalade was later discovered in long-term parking at Portland International Airport. From there, he vanished. On December 8, 2007, the FBI added him to the 10 most wanted list. For more than 15 years, hundreds of tips came in about the so-called surfing pretty boy, but none were true. To drive leads, the FBI raised the reward to $200,000, one of the highest ever for a fugitive wanted in a fatal robbery. Number 16. James Charles Kopp. On October 23, 1998, a single gunshot rang out from behind a backyard fence in Amherst, New York. Dr. Barnett Slepian, who for years had provided legal abortion services to the community, collapsed in his kitchen in front of his wife and children. The shooter was identified as James Charles Kopp, an anti-abortion extremist nicknamed Atomic Dog by the press. Kopp was added to the 10 most wanted list in July of 1999. For nearly 3 years, he hid across Europe with help from sympathetic supporters. The manhunt ended in March of 2001, when French police arrested him in Dinard. After lengthy extradition proceedings, he was returned to the United States. Kopp was later convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison, along with separate federal penalties. The case highlighted the violent extremes of radical movements. The FBI once raised the reward to as much as $1 million. After Kopp's conviction, a local witness received $25,000 for information that helped police track him down. Number 15. Leslie Isben Rogge. For 2 decades, Leslie Isben Rogge haunted America's banking system. Beginning in the 1980s, he carried out more than 30 robberies nationwide, often dressed neatly in a suit, acting polite, and leaving with millions in cash. Rogge was arrested and sentenced in 1984, but escaped a year later. He returned to robbing banks, becoming skilled at using fake checks and traveler's checks to fund his fugitive lifestyle. In January of 1990, the FBI added him to the 10 most wanted list. His capture made history. In 1996, when the internet was still new, a Guatemalan citizen browsing the FBI website recognized Rogge's face. That tip led him to surrender at the U.S. Embassy. It was the first time the internet directly led to the capture of a top 10 fugitive. Leslie Rogge is serving a 65-year federal sentence, set to end in 2034, when he will be 94 years old. His case was not tied to a large reward but marked a turning point. The internet had officially become a tool in FBI manhunts. Number 14. Eric Robert Rudolph. On July 27, 1996, during the Atlanta Olympics, a bomb exploded in Centennial Olympic Park. 1 person was killed, and more than 100 were injured. The suspect was Eric Robert Rudolph, an anti-abortion extremist who also targeted the LGBT community. In the following years, Rudolph carried out additional bombings. He struck 2 abortion clinics, a gay nightclub in Atlanta, and in 1998, a Birmingham clinic where a police officer lost his life. He then vanished into the Appalachian Mountains, triggering the largest manhunt in America at that time. The FBI placed Rudolph on the 10 most wanted list on May 5, 1998, and offered up to $1 million. For 5 years, elite teams scoured the wilderness while Rudolph survived by stealing canned food and nuts, and by burying 250 pounds of explosives underground. On May 31, 2003, the search ended in an unexpected way. A local officer in Murphy, North Carolina, found Rudolph rummaging through a grocery store dumpster. From a domestic terrorist who once shocked the nation, he was captured by a small-town patrolman. Number 13. Warren Steed Jeffs. Warren Jeffs, leader of the FLDS sect, assumed absolute control after his father's death. He arranged marriages for thousands of followers, including unions between adult men and underage girls. Reports said Jeffs himself had as many as 78 wives, many of them minors. In 2005, a Utah grand jury indicted Jeffs for arranging sexual assault through forced marriages. When the warrant was issued, he disappeared, moving through several states with an entourage of loyalists. On June 5, 2006, the FBI added him to the 10 most wanted list. describing him as a religious leader who used spiritual authority to commit crimes. The manhunt ended on August 28, 2006, when Nevada police stopped a Cadillac Escalade near Las Vegas for improper license plates. Jeffs was found sitting in the back seat, wearing a white shirt, and offered no resistance. Documents and phones in the vehicle strengthened the case against him. In 2011, Jeffs was sentenced in Texas to life in prison plus 20 years. Reports suggest he continues to influence followers from behind bars. While on the run, the FBI offered a reward of $100,000 for information leading to his capture. Number 12. Alexis Flores. In the summer of 2000, the Kensington neighborhood of Philadelphia was shaken. 5-year-old Iriana de Jesus disappeared while playing near her home. Days later, she was found deceased in an abandoned apartment, bound and left behind. A man who had helped the family with electrical repairs, calling himself Carlos, vanished the same night. That man was later identified as Alexis Flores, a citizen of Honduras. In 2005, he was arrested in Arizona on a minor charge and deported. A DNA sample collected at the time matched evidence from the Philadelphia crime scene. In 2007, the FBI added Flores to the 10 most wanted list. He may be hiding in Honduras or possibly back in the United States under a false identity. Age-progressed images and thousands of posters have been distributed, but after nearly 2 decades, he has not been found. To boost leads, the FBI has offered up to $250,000 for information leading to the arrest of Alexis Flores. Number 11. Juan Garcia Abrego. In the 1990s, the U.S.-Mexico border witnessed the rise of a criminal empire, the Gulf Cartel. At the top was Juan Garcia Abrego, nephew of an earlier drug lord. Under his control, the cartel grew into a massive enterprise, moving tons of cocaine from Colombia through Mexico into the United States each year. In 1995, the FBI placed a drug cartel leader on the 10 most wanted list for the first time. Garcia Abrego was accused not only of trafficking but also of laundering hundreds of millions through American banks and building a corruption network that reached deep into Mexican politics. On January 14, 1996, Mexican police surrounded and captured him near Monterrey. The very next day, instead of lengthy extradition, he was expelled directly to Texas. An unprecedented legal move. By October of that year, U.S. courts convicted him on 22 counts, sentencing him to 11 life terms and massive financial penalties. While he was still on the run, the U.S. government had offered up to $2 million for information leading to his capture. Number 10. Jose Rodolfo Villarreal-Hernández. In May of 2013 in Southlake, Texas, attorney Juan Jesus Guerrero Chapa was shot in his car in front of his wife. Investigators determined it was not a random crime but a targeted attack ordered by Jose Rodolfo Villarreal-Hernández, known as El Gato. El Gato was a powerful figure in Mexico's underworld, notorious for his brutality and obsession with avenging his father's death. Federal indictments said he directed his men to surveil the attorney for weeks before carrying out the killing. On October 13, 2020, the FBI placed him on the 10 most wanted list. At the same time, the U.S. State Department announced a reward of up to $1 million under its transnational organized crime program. On January 7, 2023, Villarreal-Hernández was captured in Mexico. He was later extradited to the United States to face trial. His years on the run turned him into a symbol of cross-border cartel violence, with a $1 million bounty reflecting the danger he posed. Number 9. Thomas James Holden. In the summer of 1949 in Chicago, Thomas James Holden opened fire during a drunken family dispute, killing his wife and her 2 brothers. Afterward, he disappeared, beginning a violent manhunt. Holden was no stranger to law enforcement. Years earlier, he and Francis Keating had formed a notorious gang that robbed banks, trains, and armored cars across the Midwest. Both served prison time for armed robbery, but repeatedly escaped and returned to crime. After the family murders, Holden became the very first fugitive ever placed on the FBI's 10 Most Wanted list when the program launched on March 14, 1950. His photo appeared nationwide, from wanted posters to front-page newspapers. On June 23, 1951, in Beaverton, Oregon, a citizen recognized Holden while he was working as a plasterer under a false name. Police moved in and arrested him on the spot. His case carried no major reward, but Holden entered history as the first name ever placed on the 10 Most Wanted list. Number 8. Victor Manuel Guerrena. On September 12, 1983, during his shift at the Wells Fargo Depot in West Hartford, Connecticut, Victor Manuel Guerrena quietly pulled a gun. He tied up 2 co-workers and injected them with what he claimed was a sedative, actually aspirin dissolved in water. Over several hours, he loaded $7 million into a rented car and disappeared. At the time, it was the largest cash heist in U.S. history. The shocking twist was that Guerrena had been a trusted employee with access to the keys. Investigators later linked him to Los Macheteros, a Puerto Rican militant group said to have Cuban support. Many accomplices were arrested, but Guerrena vanished. On May 14, 1984, he was placed on the 10 Most Wanted list, where he remained for 32 years, the longest tenure in the program's history. Despite decades of pursuit, no credible lead ever surfaced. Throughout the manhunt, the FBI offered up to $1 million for information, but the staggering reward never broke the silence. Number 7. William Bradford Bishop Jr. On March 1, 1976, in Bethesda, Maryland, William Bradford Bishop Jr., a State Department diplomat, learned he had been passed over for a promotion. That night, prosecutors said he returned home with a hammer and killed his wife, his 3 young sons, and his elderly mother. Bishop drove nearly 300 miles, transporting the bodies to a wooded area in North Carolina, where he set them on fire. 17 days later, his station wagon was discovered in the Smoky Mountains. Inside were blood-stained blankets, trail maps, and dog food. The family dog was still alive, but Bishop was gone. For 4 decades, hundreds of reported sightings poured in. Some claimed he was living under an alias in Europe. Others suggested he had vanished into rural America. In 2014, the FBI placed him on the 10 Most Wanted list, even releasing an age-progressed bust to aid the search. On June 27, 2018, Bishop was removed from the list due to lack of new evidence, though the warrant for his arrest remains active. During that time, the FBI offered up to $100,000 for information leading to his capture. Number 6. Leonard Peltier. On June 26, 1975, at Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota, FBI agents Jack Kohler and Ronald Williams were pursuing a suspect in a stolen car case. The chase led them to a camp of the American Indian movement. Gunfire erupted, and when the smoke cleared, both agents were dead. Leonard Peltier, a member of AIM, was accused of taking part in the shooting. He fled to Canada, was added to the 10 Most Wanted list in December of 1975, and was arrested by the RCMP in Alberta 2 months later. In 1977, he was convicted and sentenced to 2 consecutive life terms. The case quickly became controversial. Witnesses recanted, and questions were raised about ballistic evidence. Human rights groups around the world repeatedly called for his release, but the conviction stood for decades. In early 2025, President Joe Biden granted clemency, allowing Peltier to leave federal prison after nearly 50 years. He now lives under home confinement in North Dakota. His case was never tied to a large public reward, but remains one of the most debated in FBI history. Number 5. Rafael Caro-Quintero. In 1985, DEA agent Enrique Kiki Camarena was kidnapped and killed in Guadalajara. The man tied to the crime was Rafael Caro-Quintero, co-founder of the Guadalajara Cartel, often called the boss of bosses in Mexico. He was convicted and imprisoned for decades, but in 2013, a legal ruling led to his release. The United States immediately demanded his return. On April 12, 2018, the FBI placed him on the 10 Most Wanted list, with the State Department offering a record $20 million. On July 15, 2022, Mexican Marines surrounded his hideout in Sinaloa. A canine named Max discovered him lying in the brush. Hours later, tragedy struck when a Black Hawk helicopter crashed during the return, killing 14 soldiers. In February of 2025, Caro-Quintero and dozens of others were extradited to the United States. In Brooklyn, he pleaded not guilty to multiple federal charges. His case still holds the record for the highest reward ever placed on a drug trafficker, $20 million. Number 4. Semion Mogilevich. In the underworld, the name Semion Mogilevich is linked to a sprawling Russian-Ukrainian syndicate accused of money laundering, arms trafficking, and global fraud. In the United States, He was best known for the YBM Magnex scandal in Pennsylvania, a supposed rare earth magnet company that prosecutors said was a front for laundering hundreds of millions. On May 13, 1998, the FBI raided YBM's offices, collapsing a company valued at nearly $1 billion. Mogilevich fled back to Russia. On October 21, 2009, he was placed on the 10 most wanted list. But with no extradition treaty between the US and Russia, the pursuit stalled. In 2015, the FBI removed him from the list, not because he was less dangerous, but because capture seemed unattainable. His file remains open, and international pressure continues. Since 2022, the U.S. State Department has offered up to $5 million for information leading to his arrest and conviction, one of the highest rewards ever for a financial crime figure. Number 3. James Whitey Bulger. In Boston during the 1970s and 80s, the Winter Hill Gang ruled the streets. At its head was James Whitey Bulger, a man who ran drugs and extortion rackets while secretly informing for the FBI against rivals. When charges loomed in 1995, Bulger vanished, beginning 16 years on the run. On August 19, 1999, he was added to the 10 most wanted list. His face spread nationwide, but the first campaigns failed. In 2008, the reward was raised to $2 million. By 2011, agents launched a new tactic, targeting his longtime girlfriend, Catherine Gregg, known for her beauty salon visits. Television ads spotlighting her habits finally broke the case. On June 22, 2011, agents arrested Bulger in a modest apartment in Santa Monica, California. Hidden inside the walls were more than 30 firearms and $822,000 in cash. In 2013, Bulger was convicted on multiple counts and sentenced to life in prison. In 2018, he was killed behind bars. By then, the FBI had paid out over $2.1 million to tipsters whose information led to his arrest. Number 2. Michael James Pratt. In San Diego in the early 2010s, online ads promised easy money, private modeling, not released in the US. Behind them was Michael James Pratt. From 2012 to 2019, he and his Girls Do Porn network targeted young women, luring them with contracts and reassurance from so-called reference girls. Once involved, they were threatened that their names and videos would be exposed if they refused to continue. In 2019, lawsuits mounted, and Pratt fled the United States. Civil courts ordered him and his partners to pay more than $12 million to 22 victims. Criminal cases followed. Ruben Andre Garcia received 20 years. Matthew Wolf, 14. On September 22, 2022, the FBI added Pratt to the 10 most wanted list as a human trafficker hiding in Europe. On December 21, 2022, Spanish police arrested Pratt in Madrid. By March of 2024, he was extradited to the United States. On June 5, 2025, he pleaded guilty in federal court in San Diego. In September of 2025, he was sentenced to 27 years in federal prison. The FBI once offered up to $100,000 for information leading to his capture, but in the end, Michael James Pratt could not hide behind promises of never released in America. Number 1. Osama bin Laden. On August 7, 1998, 2 massive bombs destroyed the U.S. embassies in Kenya and Tanzania, killing more than 200 people and injuring thousands. The man behind it? Osama bin Laden, leader of Al-Qaeda. Less than a year later, on June 7, 1999, the FBI placed him on the 10 most wanted list. But that was only the beginning. On September 11, 2001, coordinated terrorist attacks on New York and Washington claimed nearly 3,000 lives, making bin Laden the most wanted man in the world. He became not just a fugitive, but the symbol of global terrorism in the 21st century. From Washington to Kabul, from the CIA to the Pentagon, every counterterrorism strategy revolved around one goal: capture or kill Osama bin Laden. For almost a decade, he evaded capture through loyal networks and constant movement. Finally, a lead from a trusted courier brought the CIA to a compound in Abbottabad, Pakistan, astonishingly close to a military academy. On the night of May 1, 2011, U.S. Navy SEAL Team 6 stormed the compound. After 40 minutes, bin Laden was dead on the 3rd floor. News spread instantly. America's most wanted enemy had been eliminated. During the manhunt, The U.S. State Department offered $25 million, plus $2 million from an aviation association, a total of $27 million, the largest bounty ever tied to a fugitive on the FBI's 10 most wanted list.